Look at that. We're 3 days away from Election Day, and that means that the campaigns and their supporters are pushing to get as many people as possible out to vote. That's easier said than done during a pandemic, and that's why NBA superstar LeBron James called for a nationwide push to increase voter access to polling locations. With the help of his organization, More Than a Vote, he and other NBA athletes convinced their team's owners to transform their arenas into places to vote. And it doesn't end with basketball. During this election season, more than 24 arenas and stadiums across the country opened their doors to voters. Caitlin Huey-Burns gives us a look at this new voting experience.
Come on over, you ready to vote? Yes.
This is not your average polling place.
Can I get you to fill this out for me?
Forget cramped community centers, church basements, and school cafeterias. Voting this year is getting a major league upgrade. With the pandemic straining resources to conduct elections, professional sports teams stepped up to the plate to fill an urgent need in their communities.
Over 20 NBA teams are offering up their arenas as early voting sites or polling locations, including right here in Cleveland. And here in Detroit at the Pistons Performance Center, you can vote early by dropping off your ballot at a secure drop box. And here in Atlanta, State Farm Arena became the largest early voting location in the state of Georgia. As you can see, it's a massive space that allows for social distancing, it's close to transportation, and they offer free parking.
That's really a win-win for everyone. They've also loaned their people, and so really come alongside the county to provide additional manpower resources. They're used to having 35,000 people show up at a concert, things like that. So voters, easy peasy for them.
It was the easiest thing ever. I'm so happy.
The attitude of the people were just like if you were going to a game. They acted like they were excited for you to come in and vote.
It's been so long since, we've been able to go to any games or anything, so it's kind of nice being in there. It, reminded me of good times.
Everybody was almost like they were a voting team because they all had on their shirts for voting. It was cute.
Teams are involved in nearly every aspect of the voting process. Charlotte residents have been able to vote during Carolina Panthers football games. Stadiums like Detroit's Ford Field will store ballots and election equipment for safekeeping in case of a recount. But it's the players who have been the driving force.
This was always about more than basketball. And while the season is over, the work is not.
Pushing their team's arenas to be more than a venue. LeBron James has been at the forefront, recruiting over 10,000 people to serve as poll workers through his group, More Than a Vote.
As a community, we really want change. And it doesn't not only just end in November, but it starts there.
What is going to be the effect of having these sports teams involved in this process?
It was much more than just saying we want to get out and vote this year. We needed trusted voices, people who would break through rhetoric and actually, communicate to voters about how to vote and how to make sure their voices are heard this year. And that's really where our prominent athletes and sports leaders played a critical role.
So hearing this information from your local sports team is kind of like hearing it from a trusted source.
Exactly. At a time when we need more trusted voices to provide accurate information about our elections. It was, a great example of leadership and really helped address a lot of our concerns in the election administration world in Michigan as to how we were going to, in Detroit in particular, meet these extraordinary needs of elections this year.
And on Election Day in Cleveland, some residents will have their chance to cast a ballot at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse.
What safety precautions are you taking to make sure that they'll feel comfortable voting?
First of all, we'll do normal health protocol. We'll do temperature checks. We'll have everything socially distant in terms of the machines and the setup here as well. Everyone will be in a mask environment. Plus, we have an incredible amount of square footage that are able to work with in terms of even an environment that is much more expansive than what might be a typical voting location that enables us to have even a greater expanse between people and polling locations.
The idea that you're going to be able to come and vote in your hometown arena, do you think that will have an effect in getting more people out to vote?
We certainly hope so. This is a destination everyone knows about, so we think making it easy, safe environment, dynamic environment, a fun setting. Who doesn't love coming to the Fieldhouse?
Joining us now is our political reporter, Caitlin Huey-Burns. Caitlin, great to see you. This is your last episode in your voting rights series. So what have you learned through reporting in this entire campaign regarding voting rights? What's being done well? Where are states falling short?
Hi, Lana. Well, we started out reporting this series because we were starting to see that voting in a pandemic added so many additional challenges to voting. There have been traditional barriers to voting. You hear it all the time in elections. Get out to vote. Make sure you vote. Your vote matters. And we discovered that traditionally there are a lot of roadblocks, especially to certain groups, to voting. The pandemic added additional challenges. What were some of the biggest challenges heading into this election for people getting to vote? Well, first, because of the pandemic, there was this need to make people feel safe voting and give people more options to be able to vote. So that's why you saw a lot of states expand their vote by mail operations, their absentee voter programs in places where I am in Pennsylvania. This is the first time that they've had early voting. And as you can see right behind me, we're at a secure drop box where people are getting their ballots in time to be counted. And what we discovered through this series was that there's high energy in voting, but they needed to figure out ways to give people access to the vote. One of the ways that we've seen states do that is having these sports arenas, these stadiums being converted into polling locations. Heading into this election, because of the pandemic, poll workers, who are usually older Americans, felt uncomfortable. There was a concern about a shortage of poll workers, and that leads to longer lines at polling locations and could ultimately suppress the vote. So having these arenas and these stadiums gave people a way to recruit poll workers to work, to have the space for people to space out, to have parking and amenities, to make people feel comfortable casting their ballots and not having to wait in line.
Seems like a very good use. Well, as you mentioned, Caitlin, you're there in Pennsylvania. Both President Trump and Joe Biden have events there this weekend, and we know how important that state is in this year's election. Earlier, I was discussing legal challenges that Pennsylvania may face. I'm wondering if you can tell us anything more about what the Biden and Trump campaigns have planned for potential challenges after the election.
Well, Pennsylvania in 2016 was decided by 44,000 votes, and this state is critical. As you mentioned, the president is coming here, making 4 stops in the state. Joe Biden is coming here tomorrow and Monday. That signals to all of us that Pennsylvania could be the deciding state here if the campaigns are coming here. A couple of things to keep in mind as we're looking at the ballots here in Pennsylvania. First, this state does not allow the processing of ballots before Election Day. You can't even start opening up ballots and getting them ready to be tabulated until Election Day. And so that's why officials have been saying that expect delays, because that's going to take a while. A couple key challenges going on here. Republicans had pushed the Supreme Court to not accept ballots beyond the deadline. The state Supreme Court here, though, says that as long as ballots are received by Friday, that they will be counted. But if this is a close race, the Supreme Court has not ruled out ruling on this after the election, something to keep in mind. And when these counties start counting ballots is really critical. That's so critical in a place that could be really close.
Yeah, I'm wondering, Caitlin, since you know the campaign so well, are they already gearing up for the potential for legal challenges?
Both the Trump team and the Biden team have a whole team of lawyers that have been studying all of these issues. So if this comes down to a place like Pennsylvania or wherever it is, all of their teams are ready and prepared in the event of any potential challenge. And that's why officials here in Pennsylvania and elsewhere have been urging people that if you are still holding on to your ballot, drop it off at a location like where I am. It's secure. These ballots are picked up by a sheriff and delivered to where they need to go. Voters that we've been talking to supporting Biden and supporting Trump say that they have liked voting this way, that it's easy, they get it done, they don't have to wait in line on Election Day, and they know their ballot is in time to be counted.
All right, Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you.